All right, so today we're diving deep into the story of St. Christopher. You know, you guys have sent in some stuff about him, and you want to know more than just the whole traveler saint image.
Yeah.
Luckily for us, we've got this great YouTube video from a channel called Paisios the Athonite.
Okay.
And get this version of St. Christopher's life, oh, it is packed. Adventure, miracles, you name it. Some pretty wild stuff, honestly.
It's interesting, isn't it, how this video digs into the parts of the story you don't always hear.
Yeah.
Not just the super polished saintly version, but like the things that make him more complex, more human, you know.
For sure. And get this, we're not even starting with St. Christopher.
Right.
The name he was born with. Reprobus. Doesn't exactly sound like a saint's name, right?
No, not really. It's a little different. And the video mentions this too. He was born in Spain. His family, they were called Canani.
Canani.
Yeah, and they were known for, well, practicing some pretty intense pagan rituals, like human sacrifices mentioned.
Whoa. Talk about a starting point that grabs your attention, makes you wonder what kind of person grows up in that environment and ends up, a venerated saint.
Yeah, it does set the stage for one of those classic conversion stories, but with some twists along the way, for sure.
Oh, definitely twists.
The video describes Reprobus as super strong, really handsome, almost like one of those figures out of myth.
Mm-hmm.
And he was driven, wanted power. So he ends up joining the Roman legion.
Which puts him right smack in the middle of some serious stuff, right?
Yeah.
Christian persecution is rampant under Emperor Decius.
Exactly, right at that time.
And speaking of Decius, this is where things get really interesting. Reprobus sees this emperor like the most powerful guy in the world, but Decius, he's terrified of the devil.
Yeah.
So Reprobus figures, well, the devil must be even stronger.
It's a logical conclusion if you think about it. Even if he doesn't quite grasp the whole picture yet.
Right, like I'm going to serve whoever's at the top.
Right, got to pick the winning team.
But then, get this, the whole thing shifts because of a simple roadside cross.
Oh, wow.
The video describes Reprobus with this demon, right?
Yeah.
And the demon is going way out of its way to avoid even getting close to a cross. I mean, can you imagine? The super powerful demon terrified of something that's basically just two pieces of wood nailed together.
It's kind of funny when you think about it like that.
I know, right? But for Reprobus, it's like a light bulb goes off. He realizes that cross must represent something even stronger than this demon he's hanging out with. So he decides he has to find out what that is.
So it's like the start of his whole search for something bigger.
Exactly.
And where does that search lead him?
To the Egyptian desert, where his legion just happens to be stationed.
Oh, okay.
He meets this hermit who basically gives him two options.
How are they?
Fast all the time or pray all the time.
That's intense.
Wow.
So like classic ways to get closer to God, purify yourself and all that. But for someone like Reprobus, who's used to relying on his physical strength, it's a tough ask.
Yeah, and Reprobus basically says the same thing to the hermit. No way, I need to eat to keep up my strength. And praying all day, that's not really my thing.
Ah, I love that. It's this great clash between his old habits and the new path he's trying to find.
Totally. But the hermit, he gets it. He comes up with a different solution, something that kind of bridges that gap.
What does he say?
He tells Reprobus to help people cross this dangerous river.
Oh, so that's where the whole Christopher thing starts to come in.
Exactly, even before he actually gets that name.
Christopher, meaning Christ-bearer, it's foreshadowing his whole journey. Like he starts by carrying people across this river, and it ends up being this symbol for something much bigger, carrying Christ himself.
That's really cool how names can have that kind of depth.
Yeah, definitely. Like a hidden meaning that unfolds over time.
And that leads us to probably the most famous part of this story, like the child, the river, and the whole weight of the world thing.
I've heard about this one.
So picture this. It's nighttime, and Reprobus hears a child calling out to him from across this raging river.
Whoa.
And the video really goes into detail here. You can practically hear the water roaring, the level rising, the sense of danger. It's a scene that just pulls you in.
Yeah, it's like the river itself is a symbol.
Right, totally. For those challenges and obstacles we face in life and how we need some help to get through those tough times.
Right, someone to guide us, to support us when things get rough.
And who better than someone as strong as Reprobus?
Right, he's like the perfect guy for this job.
So he puts the kid on his shoulders and starts wading across. But as they're going, the child just keeps getting heavier and heavier.
Uh-oh.
The video describes it as feeling like the weight of the entire world is crushing him.
Wow. That's a powerful image. It's like it's showing us the burden that Christ carries for all of us.
Right. And Priebus is struggling. He's exhausted. He's thinking they're both going to drown. And then, bam, big reveal. The child tells him, I am Jesus. And that weight you're carrying, that's the weight of the world.
No way. So that's the moment when everything changes for Priebus.
Totally. It completely flips his understanding of what strength and power really are.
And what happens next?
Well, to prove it's really him, the child tells Priebus to plant his staff in the ground. And by morning, it's miraculously blooming with flowers and dates.
So it's like a sign, a confirmation that he's met Christ himself.
Absolutely. And that's where we leave Priebus, completely transformed by this experience, dedicating his life to Christ. But his story, his transformation into St. Christopher, the Christ bearer, well, it doesn't end there.
There's more to come.
Right. Yeah, this is just the beginning. He's got a whole lot more challenges to face, more changes to go through, and a life of service and sacrifice ahead of him.
This is definitely getting interesting.
It is, and we'll get into all that right after the break. So here's where things get a little unexpected. Remember how Priebus was supposed to be, like, super handsome?
Yeah.
Well, that becomes kind of a problem for him now.
Really? How so?
Well, the video explains that women were always drawn to him.
I guess it could be distracting.
Yeah, it made it tough for him to focus on his new faith, you know?
Makes sense.
So he does something pretty drastic. He prays to God, asking to be made less attractive.
Wow, that's a pretty big ask. Most people are going the other way. But it really shows his dedication, right? Like, he's willing to give up something that was considered a big deal in his society, all to focus on his relationship with Christ.
Exactly. And the crazy thing is, his prayer gets answered, an angel appears and tells him to be patient. And then, bam, he goes through this huge transformation.
What happened?
The video says he became disfigured. Even his voice, which was probably really nice before, turned garbled.
It's like his outer appearance is reflecting this change inside. You know, what used to matter to him, like being handsome and having a nice voice, it doesn't anymore. Now it's all about his devotion.
Exactly. But this new look comes with its own problems. People who used to admire him, they start making fun of him now, calling him names like dog face and dog head.
Ouch. But he sticks with it, right? It shows real strength, you know, to face that kind of ridicule and still stay true to your beliefs.
He does. And he doesn't let it stop him from preaching either. He's going all over, speaking out against the way Christians are being treated.
So he's basically challenging the powers that be.
The big time. And of course, Emperor Decius isn't too happy about it.
Makes sense. Decius represents that whole system of power, right?
Yeah.
And Christopher's out there challenging it, showing people there's another way.
Totally. So Decius sends 200 soldiers to arrest him.
Whoa, 200.
Yeah. And get this, these are Christopher's old army buddies. Talk about awkward.
Yeah, no kidding. You'd expect a huge fight, right?
I know, right? But that's not what happens. Instead of battling it out, Christopher converts them all.
What? All 200 of them?
Every single one. It's this massive conversion. And he does it through these miracles, like his staff blossoming again and multiplying bread.
Wow. It's like those stories right out of the Bible. But it really makes you think, right? What's more powerful, an army or a truly strong belief?
Exactly. It shows that sometimes words and faith can have a bigger impact than force. But Decius, he doesn't give up that easily. He decides to try a different approach.
What does he do?
He sends 2 women to tempt Christopher. Their names are even mentioned in the video, Kalinica and Aquilina.
Giving them names, it kind of makes them more real, doesn't it?
It does. Instead of just being these faceless tempters, they become actual people.
And what happens with them?
Well, they try to seduce him, but Christopher, he doesn't budge. And get this, he actually converts them to Christianity.
No way. I mean, that says a lot about his charisma, right?
Yeah.
And the strength of his convictions. Like, even in the face of temptation, his faith is so strong, it's inspiring.
Totally. But Decius, he's beyond angry now.
Oh, no. What does he do?
He has Kalinica and Aquilina tortured and killed. They become martyrs. It's a brutal reminder of just how dangerous it was to be a Christian back then.
Really puts things into perspective. Their deaths show how much courage it took to stand up for what you believed in.
Absolutely. But even with all this, Decius still can't let Christopher go. He tries everything to break him.
Like what?
First, he has Christopher locked inside this giant brass vessel that's been heated up.
He tries to roast him alive.
Yeah, the video says the vessel was glowing red hot, just steaming with heat.
It's pretty gruesome when you think about it.
It is. But Christopher, he's totally unharmed.
Really?
Yeah, he even sees angels battling demons while he's trapped in there. Like his faith is shielding him from the flames.
Wow, like it's a test, a trial by fire.
Yeah.
And he comes out even stronger because of it.
Exactly. And the more Decius punishes him, the more people start to pay attention to Christopher's message.
So it's like Decius is actually making Christopher more influential without realizing it.
It's pretty ironic, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
But what else does he try?
Well, when the brass vessel doesn't work, Decius ties a giant stone around Christopher's neck and throws him down a well. But angels rescue him.
That's crazy.
I know. And it happens a few times. It's almost comical how Decius keeps trying these bigger and bigger punishments, and Christopher keeps getting saved.
Like it's fate, you know? He's meant to keep going, keep spreading his message.
Exactly. But eventually, Decius realizes he can't break Christopher's spirit. So he gives up on the elaborate punishments and just has him beheaded.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a tragic end, but it kind of makes Christopher even more powerful as a symbol. He literally gave his life for what he believed in.
It's definitely a story that sticks with you. But there's one more detail the video mentions.
What's that?
Decius and his son, they both meet some pretty awful ends themselves just a year later.
Oh, wow. Like there was some kind of, I don't know, cosmic justice at work.
It's definitely an interesting way to end the story. Christopher may be gone, but his message, his story of faith and resilience, it lives on.
So what's next for us? We've got a lot to unpack here, right?
Definitely. We've gone from strength and ambition to demons and crosses, from carrying the weight of the world to miracles and conversions. There's a lot to think about.
And we're going to dig into all of that right after the break. So, wow, what a story, right? We started with strength and ambition, then we got demons and crosses, carrying the weight of the world, a total makeover, mass conversions, torture, and finally, sacrifice. That's definitely not your everyday saint story.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Like, this version of St. Christopher's life, it's not just about the whole traveler's saint thing we usually hear about.
Right.
It goes so much deeper. It's about faith, it's about finding your way and standing up for what you believe in, even when things get really tough.
It's about that carrying the burden idea, you know? But not just asking for a safe trip. Christopher's whole life changed because of what he believed. He challenged people in power, went through crazy trials. It makes you think about what you'd be willing to do for your own beliefs.
Absolutely. The video keeps coming back to those themes, you know, strength through faith, resisting temptation, changing hearts and minds, not through force, but by actually persuading people.
Yeah, like those mass conversions.
Exactly. And it's interesting how Christopher starts out so strong, almost invincible, but then he's totally humbled by faith. It's a pretty amazing transformation.
It reminds me that it doesn't matter where you begin, it's that journey you take. Christopher wasn't always a saint. He had worldly ambitions, even got mixed up with demons at one point.
Yeah.
But then he meets Christ, carries the weight of the world, and everything shifts.
It's a story of redemption, right? Showing that anyone, no matter what they've done, can find faith and purpose.
It makes you wonder, what would your burden be? What challenges would you face for something you truly believed in? It's a pretty powerful question to consider.
St. Christopher's story kind of pushes us to look at our own convictions.
Yeah.
You know? What are we so passionate about that we'd be willing to endure hardship for it? It's a message that's still relevant today, makes you think about what you stand for.
I love how these deep dives can take us beyond the surface, you know? We question what we think we know, uncover these hidden connections, and come away with a whole new perspective. It's pretty amazing.
Totally. It's a reminder that there's always something new to discover, always another layer to peel back.
And on that note, that's a wrap for our deep dive into the story of St. Christopher. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and as always, keep diving deep.